It is December 18th, 2025, and this might be the very last Inverted World Not So Live of the year. And we have radiation fog in Los Angeles to discuss, amongst other things. I'm going to tell some more stories, and we're going to have some fun. So thank you guys for joining me in my pretty lo-fi setup with my little laptop and my phone. I appreciate you guys tuning in, appreciate the comments you guys been leaving and sharing it and liking it. It means a lot. I'm stoked to be able to do this in the capacity that I can. So let's get into it. This Los Angeles fog I was not aware of until yesterday when the singer, the artist MIA tweeted out this: "What are they doing to the sky in LA? I feel nauseous and my eyes have been burning for 24 hours. Why are some people always on some pray for us, don't pray on us." So I had just retweeted and said, "Fake clouds strike again," unaware that there was something really going on beyond just the fake clouds that have plagued California for decades. Because we'll talk about sea spray a little bit, one of my favorite, not so favorite operations that took place involving fake clouds and biochemical warfare out there in California. But this is a thing that a lot of people are experiencing, and it's insane. So I have this from the Daily Mail from yesterday. Let's get this title. "Thick radiation fog creeping across California sparks reports of mysterious health issues." This sounds a lot like sea spray to me, Operation Sea Spray, but let's read. Let me make this big enough so my old man eyes can read it. I was going to wear my glasses, but then this silly light shows in the glasses and I look like I just have googly eyes the whole time, more so than usual. "A dense cloud of radiation fog has blanketed California's Central Valley for weeks, coinciding with reports of respiratory symptoms among some locals. More than 20 counties across a 400-mile wide stretch of the state have been affected by the low-lying fog, which forms when the ground cools rapidly after sunset, creating a thick layer of condensation close to the surface." Gerald Disperalta from Tracy told Daily Mail that he and his family have been coughing and experiencing congestion for about a week. Before I continue, I just want to say how this reminds me of my reporting when I was in East Palestine, Ohio, a few weeks after the train derailment when they exploded the train with shape charges, and they inverted the sky. Those are their words. I'm not just saying that. The people who were there said we inverted the atmosphere above East Palestine with that blast. You might remember in that February of 2023 when we saw that insane plume of smoke. It looked like the nuclear bomb went off in Ohio. And I thought it would be a good idea to go there. But I was concerned for these people. And it was there was like a rash of these insane emergencies across the country around that time. You might remember the farm of cows when they all died, and that was weird. They said that the official story at the time said it was due to heat, but they were like instantly in rigor mortis. The images of that were insane, but there were a lot of train derailments, but this one in East Palestine had this insane plume, and obviously it dominated the headlines, and it was really tragic for that community, and they're still dealing with it. But when I was there, a lot of the locals had these similar symptoms. And when they inverted the atmosphere, it basically created a dome, this invisible dome where nothing could leave it. And so all of that blast, all the explosive chemicals that came out of that shape charge, plus the vinyl carbonate, I think it was, I could be a little wrong with that chemical, a chemical they used to make a lot of different electrical stuff and car parts, was in those things, which is why they felt like they had to blow it up to prevent more destruction. That was already controversial within the weeks after they blew it up. And now we know they shouldn't have done it. They've actually come out and said we should not have blown up the train cars. And that maybe it wasn't that much of a threat. And if anything, they could have buried them for some time. But they chose to blow it up, like within a day. But a lot of the people out there experienced a lot of weird rashes, a lot of weird respiratory issues, weird coughing. There was an apiary there that lost all its bees, and they claim that all the thousands of bees died that day or day after the explosion. And the government came in, the EPA came in and said, do not eat your livestock, do not sell your livestock, do not drink your water. And like I remember going to the there's a florist right there on the main street, which is right off the train tracks and a few hundred feet away from the explosion. And there's a stream that runs beneath Main Street, which is where the florist got her water from. She was told not to use any of that, and like it really hurt her business. But there was at the time, it was awesome to see people coming together and helping them out. And there was like a Facebook campaign to just buy flowers from this lady to help her out. It was awesome. And there was a man who came from Ohio, I think more north of her in Ohio, that would come and pick up flowers and deliver them. I think it was actually specifically, we want to help this lady, so buy her flowers and he will deliver them to elderly in like nursing facilities, which I thought was great. And that lady was so grateful. Anyway, very similar. And we poison this country constantly, whether it's for nefarious secret projects that we want to learn from, we as in the people behind the curtain of our government, or just because we made bad decisions in a rush. But people across the country have been dealing with this kind of thing all the time because of things we've been doing to the environment. I'm not a climate alarmist. I don't like the Green New Deal. I think, people like AOC are deranged in what they think the solutions are to fixing the climate. But it's undeniable that we've messed with it, whether it's through constant bombings with the nuclear stuff that we did throughout the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, and all the dumping we do. I talked about the Hudson River yesterday with, I'll never forget walking up the train tracks on the Hudson River and seeing below the IBM center, whatever their manufacturing plant up near Poughkeepsie, they had the sign there saying we can legally dump our chemicals into the river. And we had stories like, so yesterday I talked about Henry Hudson and the mutiny that happened, and Henry Hudson, they named the Hudson River after him, and no one knows what happened to him. But a lot of the stories from back then are also about how the Hudson River was clear. It's not clear now. We were told not to swim in it, and some of us had in our early days found frogs with like 3 legs. It's a prison planet. It's a prison planet. Anyway, back to the story. We've kept the kids' inhalers nearby, and we are trying to keep them indoors as much as possible, he said, sharing videos of his car blanketed in the fog, which appeared as a thick white dust as he wiped it off. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to do some tangents today. But going back to East Palestine, about a month after, I think it was, when I got back from East Palestine, there was a lot of people saying that they were worried that the chemical that they exploded above East Palestine would eventually move east. And, thinking of just how nature works and thinking of things like how Fukushima, that affected a lot of places, obviously, how Chernobyl drifted across into Europe, and that's how they discovered that problem. So very valid concerns when you've blown up vinyl chloride, whatever that chemical was, and now it's sitting in the air for a while and then it moves. People are like, is it coming to Pennsylvania, West Virginia? And I'll never forget that when I was driving out of East Palestine, no, I think it was while I was still there, there was a barge in Pennsylvania that crashed and had some really toxic chemicals on it, and that also spilled. So, and then on top of all that, there was also trucks from the EPA trying to get all the contaminated soil out of East Palestine, and they would get it up, put it in the trucks, and then ship it off to somewhere, I feel like on the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania. I forget the town. You can go find the story I wrote online about it. But I'm sitting there in a parking lot next to a food truck, looking at the site where they had the explosion, and the soil's spilling out of the back of the trucks, like as it's driving out of the town, and then just spreading it across Ohio as it goes to its dump site. And it's not funny. I'm laughing because it's just so ridiculous. One of those trucks crashed, right? And so they had that mess elsewhere, but they spread that stuff everywhere. Okay. And now I remember where I was going with that. I'm so sorry, guys. Thank you for reminding me through osmosis, because you're time traveling back to remind me that I actually had a point to that story. We're talking about, in this story, this white dust that he wiped off in the story from Los Angeles with the radiation fog. After those concerns about the chemicals floating on the fake clouds east, a lot of us woke up one morning and saw that the ground was blanketed in, it looked like snow. But if you went outside and looked at it, it looked chemical. It looked chemical. It was right before the sun was coming up. And I remember hearing it first from, I think, Cassandra McDonald, because, you know, she's also in West Virginia. And I saw her tweet about it. I was like, huh. I look outside, I'm like, yeah, there is something weird going on. And it was all over my car. And I guess I went outside right as the sun was really coming up, like right as it went from dark to light. And I swear to you, I swear this is how it went. The second the light touched the dust on my car, it like disintegrated. It evaporated. It was so bizarre. Sorry for my shaky setup. It just, and it wasn't like a snow melting. It was like chemical. It just fizzled out and disappeared, and it was all gone. And then the news reports about it, because everyone was freaking out. They're like, we told you so. And then the official story from the news later that day was, oh, it was actually sand from the southwest that traveled to you. And it didn't dump across any other states. It just somehow flew over you and alley-ooped into West Virginia and some other, I think Pennsylvania as well. And maybe Virginia too. But we're like, all right, that's a lie, clearly. Then I think it was a year later when they said, yeah, that stuff, it seems like it might have been from East Palestine. Like, yeah, we figured as much. Back to the story. Commenters on DePeralta's TikTok videos said they too have experienced similar symptoms over the past few weeks. One mother shared that her children's eczema had flared up since the fog, while another local said they had 3 headaches in 2 weeks, which they have never experienced in their lives. However, health experts have cautioned that fog itself does not cause illness, and other environmental or seasonal factors could be at play. During these fog events, temperature inversions can trap car exhaust and industrial pollutants near the ground, potentially worsening air quality and causing respiratory irritation, especially for people with asthma or other lung conditions. And you guys can look up G.Marley, Marley 100 at TikTok, and look through his videos, and you'll see the white dust and stuff like that. One of the captions under his videos says here, a dense cloud of what meteorologists call radiation fog. If you're wondering where that phrase came from, it came from meteorologists. It has blanketed California's Central Valley for weeks, coinciding with reports of respiratory symptoms, okay? So, radiation fog, also known as Tule fog, Tule, appears in California's Central Valley every autumn and winter, with a major persistent event in late November to early December 2025, creating a 400-mile-long fog bank. While unrelated to nuclear radiation, radiation fog can create extreme risks for drivers by severely limiting visibility. I'm just thinking of the alien, was it Mr. Burns looking like an alien in the radiation fog in The Simpsons? I mean, that's just everybody in LA right now. Forecasters said a system could arrive around December 17th, but it is uncertain if it will be strong enough to clear the fog. California resident Michael Washington said, I've been coughing for 3 weeks, antibiotics, inhalers, cough syrups, and benzoate ain't working. Benzonatate ain't working. All right, my friends in med school, let me know how I said that one wrong. I'll go over some of my corrections later. Thank you very much for those. Other locals said they have experienced sore throats and aches in their lungs. In DePeralta's TikTok videos, he wipes the exterior of his car, which leaves a white residue on his fingers. However, natural radiation fog, let me just say that again, natural radiation fog is not known to leave a white residue, as it is simply a cloud at ground level consisting of millions of tiny pure water droplets that evaporate as the sun warms the air. The residue could be due to dust, pollution, smoke, or chemical particles suspended in the air, which could be causing the mysterious health issues. And you'll see he's got one photo of himself doing, it looks like the cocaine test. He's just doing this, and it looks like a weird white. It's a weird white dust. It is interesting. Last week, the fog became incredibly thick in the Central Valley's flat valleys, sticking around until the sun rises and burns it off over several hours. Burns it off. That is exactly what I saw. I have lots of relatives in Sacramento that fog is nasty indeed. Driving anywhere in Sacramento is dangerous in Tool fog. It is some of the thickest fog on Earth, another social media user commented. In past years, the radiation cloud has caused massive traffic pileups along Central California highways. One of the worst chain reaction accidents blamed on radiation fog involved 108 vehicles and closed the state's Highway 99 for more than 12 hours on November 3rd, 2007. Visibility dropped to near zero just south of Fresno around 9 a.m. that morning, causing cars and big rig trucks to collide, killing 2 people and injuring more than 40 others. Earlier this year, 2 drivers were killed and 9 were injured after a 40-car pileup in a patch of tool fog on January 6th. And there are pictures on here of cars just completely blanketed in this weird white dust. Even non-drivers can be seriously affected by radiation fog, which does not create pollution by itself, but acts like a lid on a pot that keeps pollution from being carried away by the wind. When the fog forms, a layer of warmer air sits on top of the cold, foggy air near the ground. This lid traps car exhaust, smoke from fireplaces, factory fumes, and farm dust right where residents breathe it in. The tiny particles called PM2.5 get stuck in this trapped air and can transfer into a person's lungs and even their blood. Breathing in the polluted air on fog days can make asthma attacks, coughing, and wheezing worse, especially for children and the elderly. Hospitals typically see more emergency room visits for breathing problems and heart issues on foggy, polluted winter days in the Central Valley. The World Health Organization, everyone's favorite and most reliable institution in the world, has said this kind of trapped air pollution is one of the top causes of early deaths worldwide, endangering millions of people every year. And I want to pause it there to say, I do wonder if at some point, I think this is an issue that needs to be remedied, but I think places like WHO and more radical climate activists are going to use this kind of thing to push for climate lockdowns, possibly in the near future. Kind of how we had lockdowns for COVID, which were ridiculous. I can potentially see at one point them pushing this. And if, that is one of the things that if when a Democrat gets back into power, which is bound to happen because that's how the pendulum swings, that will be one of the things they push. This fact that the climate is just too dangerous and only certain people can be allowed outside. And we'll go through the whole thing over again. It'll be like a horror movie, just like lockdowns were, because it's more of like a mental contagion that we're going to have to live through. But let's see. Maybe we'll come back to this in a year or two, and I was completely ridiculous. However, researchers from the University of California, Berkeley found in 2019 that the state's tougher clean air rules have removed a lot of the tiny dust and pollution particles from the sky. Also, India and China. They're way worse about all that stuff than we are. But what are we doing to them? Since fog needs those particles to form water droplets around, there are now fewer days of thick tool fog than there were 30 or 40 years ago. Study author Ellen Gray, a graduate student researcher at UC Berkeley, said, "We have a lot more fog in the southern part of the valley, which is also where we have the highest air pollution concentrations." I'm just going to look at the comments really quick and see what people are saying. Old Angry American. I just think these are funny. Storm cyclones, heat domes, named snowstorms among many other ridiculous climate scare tactics, and now add radiation fog. SMDH. This person, anonymous human, said tool fog has nothing whatsoever to do with radiation. It's ground fog, moisture coming from the ground. I grew up in a town just east of Tracy, and at 54, this is the first time I've ever heard of this term. This person, host a spoon draw. We used to laugh at chemtrails, but they are so real. We are experiencing them in Texas and South Carolina too, and it's not the Chinese either. I think it's everybody, but it's certainly us. Fake clouds are real. This, one of my favorite episodes this year was getting to confront one of the faces of Big Cloud, the mullet man himself, from the Rainmaker. They're definitely doing stuff. I mean, he's doing different things, and I think he thinks what he's doing is good, but I don't think what he's doing, even though he says it's for good reasons, is helping, but he'll claim otherwise. I do expect at some point to have that debate with him. I wish we had it until he backed out, but there are so many different facets to the fake cloud thing. It's not just cloud seeding. It's not just chemtrails. It's also stuff like this, where things we've done to the environment keep cycling through the weather pattern, and they get stuck up into the clouds, and then it keeps going back and forth, up and down, up and down, up and down, and then moving across the country and in the world. But real quick, take a little sip of my coffee. Operation Sea Spray. I just talk about it all the time. I want to make sure this is here for us all, because it's, who knows, maybe what they're doing out there is a little more nefarious than the Daily Mail is allowed to say. Operation Sea Spray was a 1950 U.S. Navy secret biological warfare experiment in which two bacteria that I'm not going to pronounce, I'm not going to even attempt it, two dangerous bacteria were sprayed over the San Francisco Bay Area in California in order to determine how vulnerable a city like San Francisco may be to a bioweapon attack. This is just Wikipedia. There's way more in-depth stories on this. I just like giving you, this is the mainstream acceptable version of this story, because it's wild. We've had a caller earlier this year whose mother, they believe, experienced symptoms from this. Excuse me. There has been speculation that the experiment may have contributed to one death and at least 10 illnesses. Starting on September 20th, 1950, and continuing until September 27th, the U.S. Navy released the two types of bacteria from a ship off the shore of San Francisco. Based on results from monitoring equipment at 43 locations around the city, the Army determined that San Francisco had received enough of a dose for nearly all of the city's 800,000 residents to inhale at least 5,000 of the particles. This is within the range of ineffectivity for anthrax. Just so you know, it's okay. It's within the range. Trust the science, all right? On October 11th, 1950, 11 residents checked into Stanford Hospital near San Francisco with very rare, serious urinary tract infections. Although 10 recovered, Edward J. Nevin, who had recent prostate surgery, died 3 weeks later from a heart valve infection. The urinary tract outbreak was so unusual that the Stanford doctors wrote it up for a medical journal. None of the other hospitals in the city reported similar spikes in cases, and all 11 victims had urinary tract infections following medical procedures, suggesting that the source of their infections was inside the hospital. Cases of pneumonia in San Francisco also increased after Serratia, not even going to mention it or pronounce it, was released, though a causal relation has not been conclusively established, according to your official reports. The bacterium was also combined with phenol and an anthrax stimulant and sprayed across South Dorset by U.S. and U.K. military scientists as part of the DICE trials that ran from 1971 to 1975. Let's just pull up the DICE trials real quick. So DICE, D-I-C-E, stands for Dorset Biological Warfare Experiments. I don't know how they condensed that, but anyway. The Dorset Biological Warfare Experiments were a series of experiments conducted between 1953 and 1975 to determine the extent to which a single ship or aircraft could dispense biological warfare agents over the United Kingdom. The tests were conducted by scientists from Portendown, initially using zinc cadmium sulfide as a simulated agent. Early results showed that one aircraft flying along the coast while spraying its agent could contaminate a target over 100 miles away. over an area of 10,000 square miles. This method of biological warfare and the test method used to study it were known as large area coverage, also known as LAC. In the 1960s, Porton Down was asked to expand the scope of their tests to determine if using a live bacterium instead of the other one would significantly alter the results. Scientists from the microbiological research establishment at Porton Down selected South Dorset as a site for the next phase of testing with the same bacteria they used in Operation Sea Spray. So the DICE trials took place between 71 and 75, same bacteria along with an anthrax simulant. So that's all that's on the Wikipedia page, but it's worldwide, people. This is constantly going, and I guarantee you, it's happening right now. It's coming through my windows. It's coming through my windows right now. It's coming through that machine. I think it's just a constant thing happening. I really do. It's not the only reason for fake clouds, but I do think, we talked about vaccine delivery, aerosolized vaccine delivery, which is a whole other thing that's attached to this, that Russia, we know, and ourselves have tried, we've experimented with. And that was this is them in quotes because it's all for the good, the greater good, to deliver vaccines through aerosol to places that were hard to reach, to people that were in places that were hard to reach. Cool. You can't opt out. That's the problem. You can't opt out. That's what's so scary about all this stuff, is that they are working really hard with our money to destroy us constantly, make us sick, make us dependent on big pharma. It's so disgusting. And while I'm doing that, just reminded me of something I wanted to look up really quick. This quote I loved. But they really are, they see us as test subjects. That's all we are. I mean, we've discussed Henrietta Lacks, how they took her DNA without telling anybody and just turned it into like tens of thousands of different product that people made money off of. And this poor lady just died. And they were like, Henrietta Lacks, you should look it up if you didn't see that episode, but they call her the immortal DNA of Henrietta Lacks, Lacks. But thinking of freedom, thinking of independence, thinking of money, I love this Owen Benjamin tweet from yesterday. He said, "Freedom doesn't come from owning assets. It comes from lowering dependence. There's a difference between feeling poor and feeling trapped." I love that quote. Just want everyone to hear that if you don't follow Owen. So there was a Senate subcommittee hearing in 1997 on the health and scientific research, about the health and scientific research. So they had a series of these hearings at which the U.S. Army disclosed the existence of these tests. See, it took a little while for them to disclose that, which is why it might take 10 to 20 years for us to learn a little bit more about the radiation fog in Los Angeles. Maybe that's just, honestly, maybe that's just a symptom of Gavin Newsom. Maybe he was there recently, and I think this stuff just seeps out of the pores of his skin suit, because as we all know, he is three little demons stacked on top of one another inside of his skin suit. That smells like sulfur. I have been with him in a room at the Reagan Library at the Republican debate in 2023, and that man is a demon. I don't care what you say, he's a demon. Army officials noted the pneumonia outbreak in their testimony, but said any link to their experiments was totally coincidental. The Army pointed out that no other hospitals reported similar outbreaks, and all 11 victims had urinary tract infections following medical procedures, suggesting that the source of their infections lay inside the hospital, which is where you get that official story of the hospital being the reason for the issue. But I have a feeling we're not hearing that whole story, and that other hospitals probably didn't know what the heck was going on, so didn't report it in a certain way. And there was a lawsuit for that man who died in 81. So now this is even further away from the event. Nevin's surviving family members filed suit against the federal government, alleging negligence and responsibility for the death of Edward J. Nevin, as well as financial and emotional harm caused to Nevin's wife from the medical costs. The lower court ruled against them primarily because the bacteria used in the test was unproven to be responsible for Nevin's death. The Nevin family appealed the suit all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which declined to overturn lower court judgments. Okay, where are we doing here? We're still recording? Great. Whew. I'm worried now that the radiation fog is listening, seeping through my windows, and it's here to get me. I haven't heard my rooster in an hour now, so I'm worried if the radiation fog got to him first. I will be checking up on him after this recording. So between 1949 and 1969, open-air tests of biological agents were conducted 239 times. In 80 of those experiments, the Army said it used live bacteria that its researchers at the time thought were harmless. Again, that its researchers at the time thought were harmless. In the others, it used inert chemicals to simulate bacteria. In the 1950s, Army researchers dispersed Serratio, which is the same thing from sea spray, on Panama City and Key West, Florida, with no known illnesses resulting. In the 1950s, Army researchers dispersed zinc cadmium sulfide, a known cancer-causing agent, over Minnesota and other Midwestern states to see how far they would spread in the atmosphere. The particles were detected more than 1,000 miles away in New York State. So sick. This is so sick. Bacillus globigii, never shown to be harmful to people, was released in San Francisco and Washington, D.C., and New York, and along the Pennsylvania Turnpike, among other places. That is the only thing it says there. It doesn't say who. Doesn't say who did that. In New York, I'm just assuming the military. In New York, military researchers in 1966 spread the same a variant of it, though, also believed to be harmless, in the subway system by dropping light bulbs filled with the bacteria onto tracks and stations in Midtown Manhattan. The bacteria were carried for miles throughout the subway system. Army officials concluded in January 1968 report that similar covert attacks with a pathogenic disease-causing agent during peak traffic periods could be expected to expose large numbers of people to infection and subsequent illnesses or death. Merry Christmas. In May 1965, secret release of the same agent, again, bacteria, at Washington's National Airport and its Greyhound Line's bus terminal. More than 130 passengers were exposed to the bacteria and traveled to 39 cities in 7 states in the 2 weeks following the mock attack. It's just a mock attack. I mean, we gave you it, but it was fake on our end. And we were watching you, but it was fake. It was mock. I mean, you got sick. Some of you might have died, but it was fake because we were just playing pretend because we're doing it to help you. We're here to help. Just because you're sick doesn't mean we're to blame, because it's for you. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about fake space. I need a sip of my coffee. You all still here? I'm going to time travel here now to tonight. It'll be 10:33, just about. And I'm saying hello to you. It is good to be with you. Thank you for joining us. Please, at this moment, hit the like, maybe share it with a friend. Tell them about what they've been doing to us. We are just mice in their experiments, and it's disgusting. But hello to all of you out there. Thank you for joining me on this lo-fi, possibly last episode of the year of Not So Inverted Live, of what, am I dyslexic now? Of Inverted World Not So Live. And yeah, we'll see. I was thinking about maybe trying to upload stuff during the break, but everyone's going to be off, and I don't have access to this to upload myself, so I might try to bother someone and see if they can, but I feel bad on the holidays, everyone out for Christmas and stuff, in the new year, which is crazy that we're here already, but we'll see. This has been fun, though, and I appreciate you guys sticking around despite it not being as top-notch quality as possible. But anyway, here we go. This is from 8 hours ago from space.com. Rocket Lab launches 4 experimental dissects for the U.S. military. Rocket Lab launched a new type of satellite for the U.S. Space Force early Thursday morning. That's this morning. An Electron rocket carrying 4 dissects lifted off from Rocket Lab's pad on Wallops Island, Virginia on Thursday at 12:03 a.m. The launch, which Rocket Lab called "Don't Be Such a Square," that's that quote, that's a quote from them, kicked off the Space Test Program mission for the U.S. Space Force's Space Systems Command. STP-30, which now I'm going to have to listen to Stone Temple Pilots later, will operate the first ever dissects, a new type of spacecraft developed by the Aerospace Corporation with funding help from NASA. At 40 inches wide by just 1 inch thick, each dissect has the approximate dimensions of a manhole cover. And they look kind of like that. So dissect, D-I-S-K-S-A-T. The odd shape could lead to greater performance in the final frontier for small satellites, which have traditionally employed the boxy CubeSat form factor. Dissects could offer more power and surface area for instruments, providing more opportunities for NASA to expand upon target mission objectives for small spacecraft, agency officials wrote in a description of the new tech. With its ability to fly continuously with one face pointing at the Earth, the dissect can also have a very low drag, making them capable of very low altitude missions, such as those necessary for some Earth observation missions. The dissects won't be flying solo on their there's 2 words, not solo, LOW, on their inaugural mission, however. The Electron deployed the quartet at an altitude of 342 miles, about 55.5 minutes after launch as planned. Rocket Lab initially planned to launch Don't Be Such a Square in April 2026, but expedited it at the Space Force's request, the company said in an emailed statement. The mission was Rocket Lab's 20th of 2025, extending the company's single-year launch record. The previous high was 16, set in 2024. Most of these had been orbital flights of the 59-foot-tall Electron, which gives small satellites dedicated rides to Earth orbit. But 3 were suborbital missions conducted by HASTE, a modified version of Electron that lets customers test hypersonic technologies in the space environment. So let's see if I have a picture of these things. Why don't they have a picture? Okay, and this is a picture if I can get rid of these silly ads. This is an illustration of it. But you'll see that they will be launched up. Oh, everything has an ad. Well, you're gonna deal with the ads, and I'm gonna do this now because I hate this silly light. Let's see. Nope, not that. There we go. That's what they look like. So we're gonna have these discs now orbiting everything. Should be interesting. I just pulled this up because this is from NASA's website, just so you have some a little more idea of what these things are. It's about what is a dissect. Dissect is a plate-shaped spacecraft that could offer more power and surface area for the instruments and provide more opportunities for NASA to expand mission objectives for small spacecraft. Funded by NASA, small spacecraft designers at the Aerospace Corporation in El Segundo, California, developed the dissect technology demonstration to create an alternative to standard CubeSats, maintaining the benefits of the platform while overcoming key limitations. It's got the same picture I just showed you on here, and El Segundo is actually also where the Rainmaker Corporation is headquartered, I believe. So that'll be happening. I think people are going to be thinking, if we can see them, these are going to look like UFOs. They're pretty close to a flying saucer, and maybe that's on purpose. Okay, let's see here. How are we doing? Still recording, that's great. I'm assuming you're still here. That's awesome. Appreciate that. And backtospace.com. More news from fake space. Why interstellar comet 3I Atlas's close Earth approach is an early Christmas gift for astronomers. This should be here in tomorrow, or at least observable tomorrow. So 3I Atlas is the third large interstellar visitor that we have ever discovered and I don't know why that sentence is it should be the third largest interstellar visitor that we've ever discovered. An asteroid or comet that originated outside of our solar system and was discovered passing through. Astronomers can glean information about celestial bodies by observing the light reflected off them with telescopes. When 3i Atlas is closest to the Earth, all the features that we are looking for will be easier to detect with our telescopes. This interstellar vagabond presumably formed in a protoplanetary disk of gas and dust swirling around another star, the sites of active planet formation. They're just making this up. Maybe you're a NASA enthusiast or you're evangelized from NASA. I think they just make it up. But let's pretend for a minute. Let's just pretend this is all super real. Most likely, 3i Atlas was ejected by a close gravitational slingshot off a giant exoplanet. It has since been careening through the interstellar medium of the Milky Way galaxy for billions of years. I don't even believe in those numbers. And we get front row seats to watch as it gets close to our sun for what is almost surely the first time it has ever gotten close to a star. Maybe. Let's think. Let's think. What if space is real? Now, look, I think there's something up there. I don't think all like this infinite space is there, but anything's possible. And also, I know nothing. I'm a feeble little human being with a giant mutant skull and a brain that hardly works. So, but let's think that something is going on up there. Maybe they had to release those disc sets early for tomorrow. Maybe, maybe we've been told a whole different story. Maybe Avi Loeb's right. Who knows? It is interesting that the disc sets are coinciding with it being closest to Earth, 3i Atlas being closest to Earth tomorrow. On December 19th, just 6 days before Christmas, the erratic wanderer will be the closest to Earth that it will ever be over the lifetime of the entire universe. I just don't buy it. Oh goodness, these ads. Excuse me while I X out. My apologies. Thank you. In the past 7 years, we have discovered 3 members of an entirely new population of celestial bodies. These objects have hyperbolic orbits as opposed to the bound, circular, or elliptical orbits of everything native to the solar system. That's how we know that they come from elsewhere. I love that. They come and leave and never return. All we get is a fleeting look into the lifetime of these objects and the measurements we take during their brief passage through our solar system, and it could provide critical clues into our understanding of planet formation throughout the galaxy. Let's go back to the conspiracy theory that space is real. What if it's it's also been believed in the conspiracy theory that there's something else out there experimenting on us. What if this is their Operation Sea Spray, but for Earth? And that's all this is. Everyone's just experimenting on each other. All of life, all of existence is just one giant Mexican standoff of people experimenting on each other. That's all this is. It's certainly what's going on in this country. And we know for sure it's going on in other countries, but that's all this is. It's a Spider-Man meme. My phone's not even big enough to capture my vulture wingspan of everyone pointing at each other. We know that the solar system ejected a huge amount of material into the Milky Way galaxy in the form of interstellar comets. Our best computer simulations have shown that in order to reproduce the structure of the solar system that we see today, there was most likely a violent period during which the giant planets Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune migrated, flinging material into the Kuiper Belt. You guys who are NASA evangelists, let me know about that one and my pronunciation. During that process, we probably liberated about 30 Earth masses of 3i Atlas-sized comets into the interstellar medium. So their computers say this is so, and that's it. I believe it. I believe computers. In the last 30 years, we have discovered that planets are surprisingly common around other stars. It is therefore not surprising that other planetary systems should also have ejected comets into the Milky Way galaxy. The first known interstellar object, which is Oumuamua. How can I pronounce Oumuamua? I can't pronounce anything else, but I can say Oumuamua. 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 And that was discovered in 2017. 2 years later, we discovered 2I Borisov, which displayed a prominent cometary tail, and its composition was much different than those of solar system comets. Our telescopic observations revealed that it contains more carbon monoxide than water. And I see you guys in the chat making fun of my water pronunciation. That one I just can't help. That's the New York in me. Most solar system comets are comprised of a lot more water than any other type of ice. Water and Oumuamua. All right, so we'll see what happens with 3i Atlas. I'm still recording, that's good. Where was I going next? Let me pull up my trusty notes. Okay. So I just have let's just go through some stories now. We'll do story time and a little bit of show and tell. If I don't lose people at the fake space comments, I'm sure to lose them at the show and tell. But I'm going to do it because it's been fun. It's the end of the year. And it's been a wild year. Where do I start? This channel started, I guess, about 5 years ago. And I'm so grateful for everyone who showed up since then. We debuted it on my first time ever on IRL in October of 2021. So I guess, yeah, it was October. And that night we posted the very first video. It was crazy to see the response. And back then we were still just I was writing stories. They'd be published on the website, but also I would narrate them. And even, actually, you know what? Yeah, they were narrated and then put right up on the YouTube page. And Alex was helping with the audio at that point. And it was awesome. So we can see how this channel has mutated over the years. And I think there was like a year we didn't even use this channel. We didn't have the Rumble yet. So shout out to everyone on Rumble, and shout out to all you guys on YouTube. We did start it on YouTube, eventually got with it and put it on Rumble, and stoked to see how it grew over the years. But the YouTube was dormant for about a year when I went and spent a year just doing other things within the company in terms of writing and doing shows and stuff like that. And it was crazy to then come back to it. Alex and I started the show, I guess that was a little over a year ago, in this kind of format. Well, not this format, but, in the studio, live on Sundays. And then back in May with Brandon nightly at 10 o'clock. And so I was thinking about just like how this all started for me. I told the story many times about losing my job, quitting my job as a professor, my wife getting fired, both of us not getting vaccinated, needing to flee New York. We knew we had to leave. And then nothing lined up, and how like 6 months prior to all that, I just happened to hear Tim say on IRL that he was looking for a writer who's into kind of this stuff that we talk about, whether it was true crime, paranormal stuff, mysteries, history, all that stuff. And that was what I was freelancing about, but not politics. But it was, a little bit before me hearing Tim say that, when I decided I had to start saying stuff publicly about what was going on in the world, because I was feeling so sick about COVID lockdowns, and not sick about having COVID, although I did get really sick around that time. But I was sick about the world and my friends and family and people losing their minds. And up until that point, I'd only ever covered weird history, like I said, true crime, stuff like that. And I remember talking to my wife and being like, I have to say something. And I had, maybe 100 followers on Twitter, if that. If I tweeted back then, I'd get like one like if I was lucky in that summer of 2020, and maybe a few hundred followers on Instagram. And not that I care about that stuff. Like, I don't measure my success or my wealth in that stuff, but I'm just thinking about it to think about how much has happened in the last few years, and grateful for the audience that I do have, and getting to share with you guys stuff that is so important to me. The fact that I can say things now with you guys and we can share ideas together, because that was what was most important to me when I had this, what I'm about to tell you, to sit down with my wife and be like, I have to say this. Even if it's just our friends and family that hear it, I need to come out and say, like, this is wrong. You're being evil, and you're mutilating society with lockdowns, with the George Floyd riots, friends giving money to bail out literal arsonists. And so I knew that if I put something out, it would cause a lot of damage to relationships that we had, both friends and family. So I remember So when lockdowns happened, when they first started in New York, the power went out at my parents' house, which is where we were at that point. We were about to move into our first house with our, gosh, our son was 4, I guess 3 or 4 at that point. And we were living with my parents on the farm where the horse bones come from. The power went out as this was all going down. And I remember just thinking how, if this happens, if they shut down, we're going to go back to the 70s, thinking of all the stories my grandfather told me about New York City in the 70s as a cop. And I think I was pretty correct in thinking that would happen in terms of crime going up, mass paranoia, mass hysteria, fractured reality, people feeling unsafe, mass migrations from different places, different cities to other cities. That all happened. It's because it's cyclical. You know, it's not, I had insight from talking to people who lived through other types of weird situations like that, where I remember reading books right at the beginning of lockdowns or when they were threatening lockdowns about New York City in the 70s and all that stuff. And now we're going to see even more of that now with people leaving the city if like taxes go up because of Mamdani and all that. Anyway, when the day the power outage happened, I was like, I'm just going to write a book on my own and publish it on my own. And at that point, I'd already like told my wife that I'm no longer going to try to get published in more of these in these places I've been published already, like The Atlantic or Vice or Pitchfork, BBC, because they literally hate me and anyone like us. If you think a certain way, if you look a certain way. And I was like, why am I putting myself through this misery of dealing with these people if, I don't think anyone was even reading those things anyway. So, all I ever wanted was to share opinions and then have people like talk about, have an open dialogue about the ways that we can help fix the world for our children, right? That's very important. And I wasn't able to have those conversations with these editors and stuff like that. So I remember starting to write this book, and I knew right away I was going to title it Joyless Kingdom, because it felt like we were entering a very joyless kingdom of sorts. And then as things progressed that spring, with the George Floyd stuff and the riots, everyone getting way crazier about COVID, I was like, I'm going to write something now political about all this. I'm going to use it in the book. And I decided to have this sit down with my wife and be like, I'm going to put out this, basically a poem. I'm going to put it out before the book on its own. And we're going to lose all our friends. I remember sitting down with her in Newburgh, New York. She read it. She was like, let's do it. She's way more gangster than me. And I was like, sick, let's do it. Got it ready. And we were like, people are very predictable. And I was like, we're going to get phone calls from these people. We're going to not hear from these people ever again. That all happened. I remember the second it happened, one friend reached out who pretended to be happy for me. I later find out how miserable they were about all of this. And they've lost their minds. But that night I got a call from a guy who was so upset about this poem. It was called I Will Not Join Your Cult. And it talked about everything. It's been zapped from YouTube, completely zapped. I think that's why my YouTube channel I've been trying to use it a little more, but it doesn't really go anywhere. No one has no reach whatsoever. And I think it's because of that poem. It immediately got deboosted, and then so I put that out in 2020. Just this past fall, it deleted it forever. But I was looking through stuff and I was laughing because someone yesterday said Shane's going to show us his closet next and his shoe collection. I was like, yeah, now I will. So I remember making this. I put out shirts with that book, and it was angels dancing on COVID. And on the back it said Joyless Kingdom, through Vulture House. That's my, my little press I came up with for my books, Vulture House Press, which was I was stoked on that. So I sold a bunch of that. The book came out, it was great. But I was just thinking about like, that was the beginning of me talking openly about politics and everything like that. Sorry if I just took my coffee out at you. But then I get this job and get to do this all the time. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for you guys and the people who, who share this stuff, who dig it, the people who reach out to me and show me like new story ideas or just reach out with kind words. It means a ton to me, seriously. I am so grateful for all of that. All right. And I got more to say. What do I want to share next? All right. There's been a lot of horse stories this week, so I figured I'd round it out with one final horse story for now. I can't really promise that, but I have this. I'm going to turn off this light for a minute. Up. So you can see this picture. This is me when I was 11 on a horse named Nicosia. And there's a really funny story behind this picture, but I'll show you this first. See that? No, try not to get that. That is me with the American flag. I am riding around this ring as the national anthem is being sung by a cadet from the military academy. So that is Nicosia. He was my favorite horse. Me and him went real fast when we did barrel racing. And here I am. So what you can't see in this photo is in the center of the ring. In the center of the ring, there is a singer. I believe she's in a uniform, and she's got her microphone and a cable, which is going out of the ring up into the announcer stand to the PA system. And she's singing the national anthem. I'm going fast, like super, like, yeah, like Mel Gibson in The Patriot. And Nicosia trips on the wire and rips the microphone out of the lady's hand, sending the microphone flying into the audience. And the speakers come crashing down. It's like the record stops abruptly. And so that was a day. I was 11. That was 1996. But this plaque was made because I was the walk trot reserve champion at this thing that happened, this race that happened in Goshen. But they took this photo and did that. So I just thought you guys might enjoy that for the stories. And then I was like thinking about Christmas and Christmas stories, and I was thinking about something Owen Benjamin once said to me, and he said online before. He's been on the show. Always fun having him on the show. He talks about like getting a wink from God, and I think we can all look back to certain times where you get a wink from God. First time I heard him say it was when he was doing a podcast with Bryson Gray. And Bryson, I think, was wearing a shirt that had Owen's birthday on it. And it turns out they have the same birthday. If you don't know that podcast, that's a long story between them, but it's hilarious. And I love that phrase, a wink from God. And just thinking about like what I've been doing leading up to all this, writing all this stuff, and Christmas. This is a Christmas story that I like quite a bit that happened to me. So this would be maybe 15 years ago, about 15 years ago, before our son was born. So definitely more than 10 years ago, about 15 years ago, I had put myself through this master's program, which I kind of regret. But I thought I was going to be a professor, and I was a professor, but I thought I was going to write and just be a professor. But clearly that institution has been destroyed. And as I was putting myself through that program, I was managing a tattoo shop. I was doing the furniture mover stuff. My wife was a waitress, my girlfriend at the time, but my wife now. And she was waitressing in New York City, near where like the New Year's Eve ball would drop. And typically, you know, when you're doing that work in the city, you work on the holidays, all the holidays, which is a bummer. But you know, we did what we did. And I remember that like last year of my program where I was trying to thinking I was going to become a professor, then becoming adjunct professor at that college. That's Manhattanville. And I had one thing on my wall that whole year, kind of like a crazy person, I guess, but it was 10 Rules of Writing from Kurt Vonnegut. And I've always liked Kurt's writing. I'm sure me and him would disagree on quite a bit if he were still around. But he, you know, tragically died after falling downstairs in Manhattan. And I don't think he died immediately, but it was sad. He was old. But I always liked his writing. Found it very interesting. And there's a lot I do agree with him on. And he also like enjoyed just the absurdities of life. And I enjoy the absurdities of life. But I had just one thing printed out on my wall for that last year of my MFA program, where it was his 10 rules. And one of those rules is like, maybe I just pull it up because I want to get it right, because I love him. If you haven't read any Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five is my favorite. It's such a good book. And he also had this short essay, nonfiction, about going out for an envelope, which is so good if you have not read it, because it's just about how going out into the real world is so important, talking to real people. And I totally agree with that. But, you know, I want to find this. Here it is. It's number 7 on Kurt Vonnegut's rules. 8 rules from Kurt Vonnegut for writing. Write to please just one person. If you open a window and make love to the world, so to speak, your history will get pneumonia. I love that. Just meaning like, just do you. If it's interesting to you, you do it. Robert Frost once said, the poet, you know, if you're getting emotional over your own writing, like if it's making you laugh, it's making you sad, cry, then you're doing something right. Don't think about what everyone's going to want. Don't try to please everybody, because that's how your story or whatever you're making gets sick, and no one wants that. Then it's inauthentic. People gravitate towards things that are new and fresh because there's only one you. There's only one you. And only you can make those things. If you're interested in making anything, whatever it is, painting, art, whatever, only you can make it. And don't try. Obviously, we all have our inspirations and we all pull from references that speak to us, but we don't want to mimic. We don't want to recreate. We want to just be us. And people love that, you know, and we're always trying, because we're also trying to just figure out who we are in the chaotic world, you know. But I always love that about Kurt. So I had those rules on my wall as I was finishing up my first novel, which never came out for good reason. But it was my first novel. And so I graduated that program, and then I had nothing lined up other than furniture moving. I'd been out of the tattoo shop, I think, at that point, because I moved. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna go to the city now. And around it, sorry if I'm just gonna tell some stories now. So hopefully you guys are still here. The one thing I was doing for money at this time was, and I chose a really bad time of year to start this, was having a hard time finding like a legitimate other job outside of the furniture moving for the auction gallery. So I started to take photos with this really old Leica camera I found, Leica, if you don't know. It's like an old German camera. Amazing. I love that camera. I wish I could afford the legit Leicas right now, but this was like an old one I found used, and I could afford it. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, loved taking photos. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take photos of things, and I'm going to print them out, and I'm going to attach them to driftwood from the Hudson River. And I chose to do this in the winter. So I'm going down to the river in frigid weather and pulling driftwood out of the river or along the shore, drying it, not painting it, but like putting a clear paint on it to keep it protected. And I would get 2 pieces of glass or plexiglass, drill holes in it, put the picture in between it, drill it to the wood, get it, make it hangable, And it kind of took off for a little bit. I had a lot of people purchasing that, which is great. And I guess this is around 2013 or 14, around that time. We can look it up by whenever there was an Ebola outbreak in Manhattan, because it was whenever there was a bit of Ebola in Brooklyn at a bowling alley, I think was exactly what happened. So maybe 20, I don't know, somewhere around there. But anyway, I was doing all that, making a little bit of money. And then I decided I'm going to go down to the city to see Nancy, my girlfriend, my wife now, at her job, because she shouldn't be alone on Christmas. And so I did Christmas with my family, got on the train, feeling this like just kind of lost in the world. And yeah, probably Lost in the World by Kanye had come out at that point too. So I'm playing my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy quite a bit in my whatever I had, an iPod at that point. Get on the train, and I'm reading this book by Saul Bellow. Saul Bellow. It was an interesting book. Not the biggest fan. So I'm on the train, and I'm reading that. And the closer I get to Manhattan, this old lady comes up and stands above me, and I can feel her reading my book and like kind of like looking at it. I'm like, please don't bother me. I just want to read. Don't bother me. I just wasn't in the mood to talk to a stranger. And the person next to me got up and left, got closer to the door to leave as we were pulling into Grand Central. And she sits down next to me. And I haven't told the story in a while, so I'm sorry if I'm going to fumble through this, but I was thinking about it this morning. She then leans over to me. She's got like kind of a nice like pea coat on, a white hat, like furry hat, and like red leather gloves. So she looks like she's not crazy. She's dressed quite well, and she's maybe in her late 70s, mid 70s. She leans over to me and goes, "How are you liking that book?" And I was like, "It's cool. You know, the sentences are cool. Like the story is not so great, but I liked the sentences. They were really, really well done. And they were effective. Very strong sentences." So I told her that. And she then says, "I knew Saul Bellow." And now I'm like, okay, so maybe she is a crazy person, because there's lots of crazy people in this city and they all say crazy things. And now I'm like, what am I getting into? Is this some sort of like, am I going to get robbed when I walk off the train? Who is this lady? Is she setting me up? Am I now going to be like babysitting a schizophrenic lady out of Grand Central Station? I was like, oh, okay, cool, sweet. And she told me like she took a picture of him once. I'm like, okay. So I'm listening to her say that stuff. She asked me what I do. I just told her this. I told her this, my spiel about college. Now I'm talking to her. Told her I just graduated. I'm, reading this and looking for my next job and stuff like that. I'm opening up to a complete stranger now, because I'm at that point getting the vibe that she might not be as crazy as I initially thought. She was a nice old lady. That's all it was. And then we get up as the train stops. We walk out together, and we're standing on the platform. And she like leans over to me and whispers in my ear. And I was like, okay, maybe she is crazy. But she leans over and whispers in my ear as everyone's rushing around us. The big Christmas tree is waiting outside. The giant lights are now all over Grand Central Station, where you can see the stars, the fake stars everywhere, and the little hole in the wall where they put a rocket once to stand it up during the Cold War, and the patch of like tar from smoke above the restaurant where Michael Jordan, I think he owns that restaurant, because everyone used to smoke so much in Grand Central. The ceiling would be covered in tar, but they kept just one spot there. And all that's happening is just a rush of people. Leans over in my ear and whispers, "I'm Kurt Vonnegut's widow." And I'm like, okay, so maybe this lady is actually insane. And she told me her name, Jill. And then she gives me her number and then walks away. And I was like, okay. And I took it. I took her number. And I looked up her name right there in Grand Central as she walked away. And sure enough, there she is. Kurt Vonnegut's widow. And I was like, that's a wink from God. Because I needed that in that moment as I'm kind of lost. Should I even be writing? Should I care? I am doing nothing but getting rejected, failing, not feeling too confident with what I'm doing, although I love writing. And I was like, that's a wink from God, you know? And at that point, I didn't really have any faith at all, but it just felt so immense that in all of the city, I happened to meet the widow of the man whose paper was on my wall for the entire last year. As she talked to me, her dead husband's words were on the wall above my bed. Insane to me. And I remember I was like overwhelmed with this crazy feeling. And I was dizzy, and I walked out and just stared at the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, and where, you know, I tried getting a job there years prior, because my goal was to write for SNL or Conan O'Brien. And I went to Upright Citizens Brigade, the UCB, which is like a comedy thing there, and hated it. I did not fit in, didn't like these people. It was, and I just didn't feel very confident that this would be my goal. But I loved SNL growing up, loved Conan O'Brien growing up. So I'd been in Rock Center quite a bit. I had gone to the UCB, which is kind of in that area, but now I was just staring at the tree. And then I went and told Nancy, went and saw her and sat there and drank a few old fashions that night. And it just felt like that gave me some direction from something much bigger than me. This is how I thought of it at the time. Now I know that's God. That's a wink from God. And him just being like, here you go. You know, a little bit of motivation. And it was extremely motivating. And then I became friendly with her. My wife and I went to her house. I got to sit at the desk where Vonnegut did a lot of his writing. Saw his typewriter. It was amazing. Trying not to get emotional because it was so cool for me just to be like in that world. That was only a world to me on the page, and now I'm standing in that world. You know, where he did all these things. I saw things he invented as an old man at this big table. He made this thing that spun around like a lazy Susan for the middle of the table that he built himself. It was awesome. And I saw all her photos. She's a photographer of authors. So she took a lot of photos, authors' photos for their books, like Saul Bellow, Stephen King back in the day. E.B. White, who's a writer I love quite a lot. A lot of his essays are very, very amazing. So that was crazy. You know, we spent a lot of time with Jill, and I think she stopped talking to me after I came out publicly when I was writing about, you know, politics. But that's okay. I got that time, and it was very important and very motivating to get that. And then just to cap that story off, the very strange thing is just how that motivated me to write a lot. I started, and not just to try to get published a lot. I just felt like I needed to write to get better and better and better, and not share it with anyone other than Nance. And I guess it would be a few years later now, 2019. We're still in and out of Brooklyn, and man, I want to get, it must have been right before COVID at this point. Right before we left New York City to go upstate and then get our own place. You know, my son was already born. But anyway, right before COVID happened, I'm in New York City where my wife's working. And I wrote this story about a plague taking over the world. It's a story called The King of Several Countries. I only publish it on my own, on my YouTube. But it's about a plague taking over. And then the next year, COVID happened. So I'm not saying I'm to blame. I'm just saying it's funny how you can plug into things sometimes and you don't even know it. You don't even know what's on the horizon. I was probably thinking about Ebola because that had happened a few years prior when I met the Vonnegut's widow. But somewhere on my YouTube page, still that story, and you'll see that it was published prior to COVID. It's very, very weird. But anyway, that's that. That is that. Now, what did I have here? Just looking at my notes. Oh yeah, I see you guys talking about how I'm not, I'm saying I'm not a vampire, this or that. But what I've not talked about, what I have not addressed are the gnomes. I do have a gnome story. Many years ago, many years ago, I had a girlfriend who was deathly afraid of being abducted by aliens. Might not surprise you that I was dating someone like that. I did not know that before we started dating, but she had this issue. She's from a town that I wound up writing about in Inverted World from Pine Bush, where they have a lot of weird UFO encounters, sightings, a lot of strange things. And that's where they have an alien parade every year. So her fears were kind of rooted in something tangible. But anyway, she collected gnomes, and then she gave me a gnome. And after that relationship ended, I felt it necessary to get rid of that gnome. But I felt bad. I didn't know what to do with it. So I felt like the best thing I can do is leave it somewhere for someone else to find. I didn't want to throw it out, but I also didn't want to give it to someone. So I was at some supermarket, and this must have been like Wappingers Falls, New York, and I just left it on the curb. And I left. That was it. A day or two later, I went to another parking lot. I spend a lot of time in parking lots. They have really nice sunsets. And I park my car and I get out, and I swear, I'm nowhere near that supermarket. I get out, and in front of my car is a little gnome. It's not the same gnome, but it's a little gnome. Now, you might be saying, maybe she did it. I don't think so. She lived nowhere near there. Maybe she was stalking me. I don't think so either. But it was so bizarre. I just laughed. I laughed at the gnome. I was like, that makes sense. But it was, I don't see gnomes quite often. But I did see that one. So that was my gnome story. Now I have some of your comments from last night. Let's see what we got here. Mr. Corona said, Shane the Vampire Hunter. Yep, when you guys looked at the vampire killing kit, that thing was wild. I wish I could find the photo of the one I actually had at work. It was so interesting. It was so interesting. It was worth it for the ivory alone. The enlightened fool, yes. Oh, I forgot to get my garlic. I was going to eat garlic for you guys, but guess I forgot. Guess we'll never know. Guess we'll never know. Old chairs are never comfortable, says David Parker. They're not. That might be why I had back problems now, but I think the back problems are also from like 10 years of singing in a death metal band, 10 years of being a furniture mover, and then my whole childhood of being beat up by horses. So, yeah. Mohav26 says, great, you have live stream captions. Most streamers never consider that. I think that was all Alex, and I was stoked that she did that. I like that. I like having captions too. I think that was cool. Oh, I saw Son of Nothing. My homie, Son of Nothing out there. My real life homie from the real world, from my youth. He said, I guess this is probably when I was talking about meeting Mr. Death himself. He said, Your Touch versus Death. For those who don't know, that is a Every Time I Die reference from their very first EP, Your Touch. No, the very first EP is called Burial Plot Bidding War. The song is called Your Touch versus Death. I miss that band very much. Very, very much. I see when Stephen showed up, when Stephen Wolf showed up, everyone was saying, hello, Mr. President. Indeed. Hello, Mr. President. We were glad to see you. Let's see, what else did I have here? Anthony Gutierrez says, Shane Vaughn Cashman. Oh, that's good. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. David Parker also said almost every state on the East has a Chester. Indeed. My auction gallery was in Chester. So funny. So funny. Oh, I laughed at this one when I saw it. Joe Brezel said, talking about the fires, Shane wasn't doing shows when that fire happened. Interesting. With the eye emoji. Oh, that's good. Dun, 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 dun. Mr. Mr. Corona said horseshoe fetish does exist. I don't know about that, dude. That one I have not heard of, but honestly, the world is so depraved, I would not put it past them. Um, Stephen Wolf says, my grandparents are unfortunately all gone. I miss them all dearly. Grandpa would have been 100 years old last week. Man, that's incredible. But that's amazing he lived to 99. And I'm sorry to hear about losing your grandparents. It is the worst. I loved my grandparents so much, so much. Learned so much from them, just about being a parent, being a human, going through hard times, grief, love, all that stuff. Kristen said, I think I prefer cows to horses. They're kind of cute. I love cows. I am that guy from the meme that will stop to say hi to a cow. Can't help it. I've always been that way. I want cows. Steve Wolf also said his dad owns a laundromat. That's rad. That's in reference to me saying my grandma's father had a laundromat when they came over here from Ireland. I saw a lot of you guys talking about my grandfather when I showed you the cop picture, Darth Tater and no name. Darth Tater said, looks like a cop. And no name said, he's a cop's cop. Yeah. That was awesome. And I laughed at this, David Parker, when you said Rodney King ended those, talking about the billy clubs. And it was Mr. Corona who said, tomorrow Shane is going to show his closet and shoe collection. That cracked me up. Man, you guys are hilarious. And thank you to Yerp01, lifetime Washingtonian, Muckle Tio, and Shahalis referred to Marcy's Playground song, One More Suicide. So Shahalis, okay? And I knew it as I said it. As I said Mount Rainier. However I said it yesterday, I knew it was wrong. Mount Rainier. Thank you for looking out. It's a good look. Appreciate that. The Demonic said, the devil is real, Shane. That's why life gets worse when you oppose him. That is a fact. After reading only scripture on IRL, I have been attacked more than I've ever been. Ever. And that is after the Kanye story, Eliza's story, Carrie Lake stories. I mean, those stories caused a lot of issues. And my wife and I were super prepared for those. We knew what we were getting into, just like when I did the story, the poem from 2020. Did not expect that, but I should. I should have expected that, you know? I have never experienced this. We have been going through some really insane stuff the past few weeks. And I'll probably say more about that at a later date, but you can scroll through my Instagram and see some things I've asked for prayer. It's, and I mean it so sincerely, like I believe in prayer and I am asking for you to pray for me and my family if you are the praying type. Because it has just been insane. There's been people that I've known in my life who have turned into something else. And it's really wild. It's really wild. And there's no other way I can explain it than they must be possessed. Like I used to make fun of saying things like that, but I knew these people and now they are completely different types of people. Like their voices are different. They are vicious people. So you are correct with that. Absolutely. But thank you guys. I just want to say thank you all so much. Every one of you who shows up to the chat and hangs out. You guys know who you are. You mean a lot. You know, I saw a lot of the names I just said. Shout out to you guys. Renee as well. Catherine from Scotland. Candy. Synchro. Thank you so much. I know I'm missing so many names. Sergeant Peyton. I'm extremely, extremely grateful that you guys want to join us on these episodes, even these lo-fi ones. and just share along with the show what we talk about, some stories. It is awesome to see how this all started and what it is now. The show grew a lot this year. This is the most we've ever had of an audience, and it's awesome. I am super grateful to all of you guys for showing up and liking, sharing, subscribing, all those things. Man, oh man, I almost don't want to stop because I don't know. I just don't know. But I did pull up two ghost quotes to tie in Inverted World and Christmas together. These are two of my favorite quotes about ghosts from a story. So it's from A Christmas Carol. It's from Charles Dickens. You know Charles Dickens. I've always loved these quotes about ghosts. I think they're so good. And this is about the ghost of Christmas past. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child, as like an old man viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Great way to explain something weird, like a ghost. This is the other one. I love this one. As its belt sparkled and glittered, the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom. Incredible. People don't write like that anymore because we don't talk like that anymore, unless you're writing a story about people who talk like that. But it's so good. You should reread that if you haven't. And if you're into reading, like I said yesterday, you should reread The Gift of the Magi from O. Henry. It's a short story. You can find it on YouTube. People read it all the time. Great Christmas story. I think that's everything. You're Mr. Rogers of Inverted World. Saw some people saying that yesterday with my very comfortable sweater. See if I've missed anything else. I don't think so. You guys rule. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, you know where to find me online. At Shane Cashman on Twitter. Shane Cashman on Instagram if you use those dystopian tools. And I hope to see you guys soon. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's pray for an awesome 2026. It's always going to be dark. That's human nature. As I spit out my coffee, I get emotional. I start just spitting and ranting. But no, it's always going to be dark because that is human nature. But we always have to remind ourselves that life is beautiful. Life is temporary. Make sure to observe the beauty in your life. There is beauty everywhere. Amongst all the crazy stuff we have to deal with, we know that this stuff, the evil is cyclical and it's here, but we know good wins in the end. I do hope that you guys remind yourselves of that, because I think it's crucial, especially in these dark times, especially after the year we all had, that we remember, there is love in the world, there is beauty in the world. And it is strange, and it is absurd, it is dark, it is chaotic, it is unrelenting. But even still, everything is beautiful. I mean, even the things that are dark. I was hesitant to say everything is beautiful because we know that there's some evil stuff out there. But I think what I'm trying to say is, even from the things that test us the most, and when we're up against extreme evil, there is something to be learned from that. We survive it, and we learn from it. That's why I was mentioning the other day, the last day we were in the Inverted World studio, the quote about Job and why he suffers, the inscrutable mystery of innocent suffering. And we don't know why all these things happen, but one example, one idea of why that might be is because we are suffering to be stronger, to learn how to deal with this. You know, I have my faith, my Bible, which is my blueprint through human suffering on this crazy world. And I'm grateful for that. Grateful for my family, and I'm grateful for you guys showing up and just being awesome, making me laugh constantly. And that's that. I hope you guys have a great few weeks. I hope you spend it with family and friends. I hope you listen to music, sing some songs, and that is that for now. I'll see you guys soon. Later.